Hello and welcome, evolutionary astrologers. Thank you for tuning into this moment with me from wherever you are. And I want to share a little bit about myself. I'm Nura Rachelle. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, along with herbalist, yoga instructor, overall wellness coach. And so a lot of what I'm sharing with you today about astrology really is coming through this lens of overall holistic well-being. And so my goal for this mini workshop is to share a bit of my style of exploring working with the transits for the purposes of healing and transformation. And I thought about calling this series, because I'm going to do a series of all of the archetypes. Today it's just Sun, Moon, and Mercury, but I thought about calling this series Healing with the Transits. And then I came to a deeper point of awareness that healing is kind of this buzzword that's just like thrown out around in a lot of ways. And while it's really wonderful, a lot of healing work is happening, I find that there's also a little bit of stuckness that we are collectively feeling into when we're using the word healing, because it can kind of keep us in this wounded healer archetype. And I'll share a little bit more about this when I talk about Chiron in an upcoming series. But I feel like the word transforming is so much more relevant, because the transforming requires intentionally changing habits, intentionally changing our perspectives. And also it's, the nature of evolutionary astrology is conscious evolution. So transforming with the transits, all of these words are so intentional. We're aligning with the transits. We're aligning with what is. We are loving what is. And we can do that with this ability to actually track and master our cycles that we call the transits. So much of my philosophy that has really saved my life is centered on loving what is. This is something that I've taken from quite a few different spiritual teachers, Byron Katie, Teal Swan, just general Taoist philosophy and Qigong. All of these things have really shifted my awareness into just being more present, loving what is. And if I don't immediately love what is, which happens a lot, I'm here with you in this third dimension. I intentionally use my energy to connect with the specific aspects of myself that are having resistance to what is. Looking at the oppositions, looking at the squares, looking at the archetypes that I struggle with, because we all kind of have our favorites and least favorites, right? And so it's amazing how so many different parts that we all have can be in disagreement over making just one choice, right? That we can be in extreme opposition, we can be in pain, we can be suffering, we can be torturing ourselves just to make one choice. And our whole life is a series of choices, right? So this is the essence of life. It's making choices in the present moment. And doesn't it always feel better to be 100% aligned with your choices? So that leads me into kind of what we're going to talk about today. So really loving what is. It's aligning with the transits. It's really about getting familiar with our many aspects and parts of ourselves. There are so many, really almost as many aspects as you see in an astrology chart. That's as many or more aspects that we have of different parts of ourselves. So you might hear me refer to those interchangeably, and I don't want it to be confusing. I'm talking about both. I'm talking about astrological aspects, perhaps, like the squares, conjunctions, oppositions, sextiles, and all those things. But I'm also talking about aspects in the sense of parts of ourselves. So you might hear me talk about both using the same word for different things. I think it's really important that we only take action from a place of alignment and self-love. This doesn't look the same for everybody. It doesn't mean that there's some sort of script that you need to follow for what self-love really is. But we really want to be aware of what all of the different parts of us want and how they might be being triggered by certain transits, how they might be being ignited, even by, the energy of another person who might be experiencing transits in a totally different way than we do. By being in their space, we are therefore taking part in their conscious evolution journey. So, we want to look at all of the ways that we need conscious attention. All of these different parts of ourselves are needing our conscious attention at different times, different moments. And the more we can align with the transformative healing power that is available to us in every moment, the more we are going to be able to love what is, the more we are going to feel like we can align with the transits. If we see every transit as an opportunity to transform and change and grow, not just this seemingly random thing that's just happening to us from the outside, right? This all kind of comes back to general philosophy too, that we all choose daytime location, all the major structures of our life, of our birth, right? We choose our charts. All of this is sort of foundational in understanding this perspective. So, this perspective has really led me to look at the transits and the gift of the astrology really in total, just through the lens of how I can love what is, what was, what is coming, knowing that everything is all unfolding in perfect divine alignment. Can you tell that I'm a North Node in Pisces? This has really been Virgo lessons. Whew. And I'm recording this as the sun ingresses into Virgo. And of course, the moon is in Gemini. So a very good day for teaching and talking. So hopefully I'm not too all over the place with all this mutable energy. But Virgo season almost always pushes me even deeper into the awareness of this practice of loving what is, because I seem to be confronted with more opportunities not to love what is. I tend to be confronted with opportunities to kind of spiral out, and in mutable fashion, right, to spiral into all of the potentials and all of the options and all of the unknowns for the future. And so really to acknowledge that everything is always in divine order, it kind of it helps to alleviate the tendency for me to try to fix everything that seems wrong, right? How to know and trust and actually believe that everything really is in divine order is a game changer when involved in any way in the processes of healing, right? Whether we're talking about physical healing, whether we're talking about mental, emotional, spiritual healing, if we honor and trust the fact that our bodies are here for us, that everything that happens is always trying to point us back to a higher truth to help us. Everything is here to help us, literally. We can have a completely different perspective on all of the transits that come. Even if we know, oh, this puts the sun in square to the transiting sun in square to my natal sun. What's going to happen there? Is this going to be a month all about tension, etc.? Like, we can go into those places that are kind of more analytical. But when we instead make a choice to choose to look at these transits as opportunities for change, we're really giving ourselves the best support in conscious evolution, the best chance to evolving in a way that is more in alignment and less in resistance. We know that what we resist persists, right? So, to align with what is always feels better. And so that's what I'm here to share with you about how to align primarily with Sun, Moon, and Mercury transits. So in saying all of this, of course, it doesn't mean, especially my favorite mantra that you might hear me repeat multiple times, that everything is in divine order. It doesn't mean that we don't have free will, right? It doesn't mean that we don't have agency to make changes when changes are needed. But it's about actually expanding our awareness to see that all of the energies that come to us are available for us to make the most of our healing, our transformation, our evolution, and our joy. So it's kind of that balance between, it's a divine co-creation. It's like you don't have all of the control, but you're not completely out of control. It's this power sharing that we can engage in, and it can make all the difference in our experience. So let's dive in here. Okay, so this is a chart that I really love, and I love the transit that I happen to find. Just to give an example, you can already notice some really strong points in this chart are highly activated at this transit time, and think it's a really good example just to kind of give a basic overview of what are we even looking for in a transit chart. So of course you need to know your natal chart astrology. That's always core, foundational with everything. But really some of the nuts and bolts of reading transits, everybody's going to have their own way. It's kind of like cooking in a kitchen. Some people are going to say, no, you need to follow this specific recipe. Some people are going to say, hey, like you kind of got to know what you want to make, but then you can just kind of feel it out. And maybe you change your mind one day and you do this thing differently and it ends up being this masterpiece, right? So people have their own methods. And even me, I have a method, things that I like to keep in mind when I'm reading transit charts, but I probably don't actually do the exact same thing every time. I probably hit a lot of the same points in a lot of the readings, but not always in the same order, because everything's always in divine order, right? Like it's when you're reading a chart, you're also reading a person and their energy and what's it that they want to know, right? So if somebody is coming to me and they want to know their themes for the month or maybe more short-term things, of course, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the inner planets. I'm going to couch that understanding of what's going on with like Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, maybe some of the, the nodes, maybe, I would save that more for like if they're asking a question about the year, but all of those things kind of tend to come up. And then you couch all of what the inner planets are doing within the greater expanse of what all of the planets are doing. You can include the goddess asteroids, other fixed stars, asteroids, and things like that to kind of flesh out the story. If somebody wants to know kind of what their contribution to society is based on in a given year, or they just want to know like these yearly themes of like what to focus on and intention setting and so on, I'm always looking at Jupiter and Saturn and definitely the nodal axis there. And of course, always Pluto. As evolutionary astrologers, we're always looking at where's Pluto? What's Pluto doing in your chart? And what are the nodes doing in your chart? What's going on with your karmic axis? And then again, if you are even more expansive and you just kind of want to know like what on earth is happening in life and in this collective that we are all living, maybe I will start from the outer planets and work my way into various specific times. So, maybe I'll do something quarterly and look at the ingresses of all the different quarterly seasons or even the monthly seasons. I'll kind of just divide it depending on what the person in question wants to know. But almost always I am looking at where is the moon on this day that we are connecting, because the moon is going to show the emotional self-awareness of where the person is at any time. And more or less what's going to make them feel good about the reading, what's going to make them feel like you heard them and saw them. We really rely, at least I really rely a lot on my ability to connect with people and read a person, not just a chart. But if you're more analytical, the moon is going to give you that answer. You don't necessarily need to be psychic to be able to read a person when you have their chart right in front of you. So that's just good to know. It's, so we're all different and we're all going to do it in our own way. So, okay. So looking at the moon sign house, in evolutionary astrology, we tend to link the natural house with the sign affinity. So for example, first house correlates with Aries, also correlates with Mars, and so on throughout the 12 archetypes and planets. And so that's kind of the general way that I'm going to explain about looking at Sun, Moon, Mercury. But of course, you can always deepen every single thing that I'm sharing. I'm going with the most basic things that could, pique your interest and get you curious, maybe start asking some of your own questions. So when we are looking at the moon, where is the moon in the chart? And this is actually something that this is like on a daily basis, something that I think everybody needs to be doing, because this is our emotional self-awareness. I could tell you that I tried to record this for this entire week before today, which I'm finally doing it. And it felt like today was really the only day that it aligned, especially the past couple of days when the moon was in Taurus. All I wanted to do was make apple crisp and do yoga and go for walks and get in my garden. I was like, I don't want to do anything that has to do with my brain and talking. And that is great information to have about ourselves, because instead of forcing ourselves to be in alignment with certain deadlines of some external authority or external reality, South Node Capricorn right now, right? We're all kind of deconditioning from that. We can instead be a lot more aligned with ourself. What is my energy? Where is my energy right now? If I was to push through and maybe record a talk yesterday, maybe I would have been more spacey, or maybe I would have shown up in a different way that would not lead you to understanding me as well, right? So when we want to do something, when all of the parts of us are in agreement about taking an action, is really the best time to take that action. So to understand where the moon is one of our primary indicators of what kinds of things we could be doing in that day. And it's really nice because we get at least 2 days to work on that energy. It's really 2.5. So we get 2 days to feel into, like, what does the moon in Taurus feel like compared to what does the moon in Gemini feel like? And then we go in this continuum. And the more that we're able to pinpoint details about the moon and our emotional self-awareness, really we can then extrapolate this information to all of the other planets. They're going to have a different function, right? Like when we're talking about the moon, this is our self-image. This is how we are emoting, how we are feeling. But you could take, basically, I'm actually using these exact same questions for, house 1 in Aries, such as, who am I? What are my instincts telling me? I'm using that for all of the planets, but I'm going to couch them within this function. So coming at this question from the lens of emotional self-awareness, I would ask if the moon was in Aries or traveling my first house, or if you want to go extra deep and have extra fun, when the moon is in new phase, right? New moon, not the balsamic new moon, but the new phase, new moon. You could ask the same kinds of questions, right? Because there's also that correlation with the phasal relationships. So I'll kind of try to weave that in as well, if I didn't put that in the slides. So house 2 or Taurus, what do I have? What do I value? And maybe how is it making me feel that I do or do not have something that I want or value? How am I valuing myself emotionally? Do I need to just sit with myself and appreciate what I have and appreciate myself? Those kinds of things are typical when you have moon in the second house. Maybe am I feeling undervalued, right? House 3, Gemini. What do I think or need to know or say, and therefore about my emotions? So we're going to take this almost like this mathematical equation, and we're going to bring these things together, and it's going to make everything easier. That's really my goal with astrology, is make it more simple without watering it down, right? Like, we should be able to talk about these archetypes because everybody is an astrologer or should be an astrologer, and we should all be able to communicate in this language. So how do we simplify it and it be still relevant and meaningful? So house 4 in Cancer, what are my emotional needs? Especially with the moon, right? Maybe where are we learning a little bit about boundaries? Maybe where are we finding clarity and how we feel, and being okay to have those cathartic releases. Maybe I know that I need to cry that day, or I need to spend time in water, or I need to do a lot of self-care, self-love, self-nourishing things like taking baths and really feeding myself, because Cancer rules the stomach, like feeding myself really well according to what will kind of bring me to an emotional state that I enjoy, or honor the emotional state that I am, right? We can come at it from both angles. If the moon is in house 5 or Leo, what is special about me today? What are my gifts? What is unique about me? And maybe my emotional body is feeling like it wants to have some fun and just get out there and be present and just living in the here and now. Maybe feeling very romantic or artistic or creative, and kind of letting your emotions fuel your creativity when the moon is in Leo or in the 5th house. What about in the 6th house or Virgo? This is one of my favorites, especially in Virgo season. What needs purification or to be improved, or to know that it is enough, right? Because when we're coming at Virgo, we're often saying, like, how can I make this better? And then as we do in evolutionary astrology, we really need to make sure that we are employing that opposite sign so that we don't spiral out of control, especially with Virgo, because we can tend to think that we're not enough, especially in years where, say, you have the moon in your solar return 6th house, and it's like a year of mastering your physical body, mental body, authenticity. How are you in the right role that you're supposed to be in at any given moment? Are you doing the things that you know that you need to do for your own health and well-being? And are you not getting down on yourself or being hard on yourself if sometimes you make a mistake? So 7th house, or Libra. What needs relationship support? What or who needs to be seen or heard or understood? This is the day to practice listening, active listening, and listening with your emotional body, right? So especially moon in the 7th house, you're going to be feeling other people's emotions. This might be a day or a couple days to really ground in, know what is your emotions compared to what are somebody else's emotions, and be able to be present, maybe without dumping on other people or allowing other people to dump on you, right? Like, so all of these are going to kind of have their, you know, their high points and their low potentials within a day or a 2-day period. And so to have that awareness, like, this could be that kind of day where people are really emotionally needing me. And do I have the space and the time and the presence and the energy to be able to be that for them? Or is this a kind of day where I need to practice the divine no and ask that they come back later? This is boundaries, right? This is a really big conversation with South Node Capricorn, North Node Cancer. I think we're all learning a little bit more about how to be authentic and aligned with our boundaries. So 8th house in Scorpio. What soul mystery needs to be solved? With whom or what must I merge? And so, you know, at this high point, we know that Scorpio wants us to merge with the values and desires of our soul, merge with the divine, kind of leading the way toward Pisces eventually. And in this space, we often have to confront what is limiting. And so this is kind of like solving mysteries, solving the parts of ourselves that are feeling limiting. And so just knowing, you know, ahead of time, oh, it's going to be that kind of day. In what ways am I going to read beneath the lines or read between the lines and look beneath the surface of what's really going on? What don't I know about this situation that I am, you know, having strong emotions about? And kind of allowing yourself to align with the curiosity of what could happen rather than feeling into the fear of the unknown or the limitations of not knowing, right? If instead we call ourselves into this, this wonder and this curiosity, we can really save ourselves from a lot of pain. The 9th house, Sagittarius. What is shifting about my philosophy or truth? This is truth with a capital T. I should have put a capital in there. This is like, especially, you know, when we kind of call in the other transits, right? So like, I'm just talking about the moon, but we also know that there's a bunch of other planets doing a bunch of other things at the same time. So say, you know, the moon's going to be with Jupiter in Sagittarius that day. Whoa. There's going to be some big emotions. This is going to be a lot of emotional focus and awareness on truth. It's going to be bigger than if it was just the moon. And so this is where we start to do our astrology math and add different archetypes together so that we can kind of put this puzzle piece together. But if we at the very least know the moon and we don't know anything else about our charts, we are in such good hands with ourselves. The 10th house, Capricorn. So what am I building, or what do I need to use, or maybe what do I need to decondition from? What do I need to tear down? What structures do I need to sort of evaluate and see, do they make sense? Do I want to keep them? Do I want to say thank you very much for your service up to this point, but you're no longer serving me? Very important things, especially with Pluto, Saturn, and South Node in Capricorn. And so, of course, the moon is coming back to these points once a month. We get to do this like in a heightened, emotional, focused way, at least 12 times in a year. We have a lot of opportunity to practice mastery, and thank God, Goddess, we don't have to do it all at once. We've got these beautiful cycles that kind of allow us to focus on just a little bit at a time. So take it slow in Capricornian fashion, and don't put too much pressure on yourself when you feel like you maybe should be farther than you are. You're exactly where you're supposed to be because you're there. That's exactly where you need to be. And if you have this feeling like you need to go further, sit with yourself and communicate with all of the different parts of yourself to inquire about what do you need, instead of asking yourself, kind of measuring like your progress in terms of like, am I amazing or do I suck, right? Like think about what kinds of things the ego will say to you when you're not quite where you thought you were supposed to be. Instead of asking, how am I doing? Just ask, what do I need? It's a lot safer of a question and a lot easier to align with what is when you're not judging yourself and guilting and shaming yourself. 11th house, Aquarius. How am I expanding beyond myself, right? Like the 11th house is like bigger than just me, right? The opposite, Leo, all about me. And that's a great place to be when it's the time. But when it's about others, when it's about the community, when it's about, you know, what does my community need from me? What are the gifts that I have to share with other people? It's like the time to actually do the sharing. With the Leo part of things, it's like developing the gifts, practicing them, owning them, just showing them because it's fun for you. But when it's the Aquarius end of the spectrum, it's like ensuring that there's actually community need. Like, where do you fit these gifts in? How do you kind of see the progression or the trends to kind of navigate that sharing of energy? And it's also, how do you become bigger when you work with a team? So maybe, you know, are you playing team sports? That might be a great day to plan some sort of game or something that is involving your community in some way, or the very least plan workshops to happen that day where, you know, you're connecting with people across the space as we are right now. So that's very an easy way to align with Aquarius energy. And aligning with the moon in the 12th house, or Pisces. Whew, what is spirit downloading to me? This is huge. Also, perhaps what needs to be dissolved about my ego. This is really a strong time of really entering and sinking into the don't know mind. This has been so helpful for me as a South Node Virgo, North Node Pisces. I'm like, okay, the part of me that just wants to know everything all the time so that I can just make all the plans, so I can just do all the things right. On top of repeating to myself the mantra that everything is always in divine order, when I don't know something, I'm just like, oh, don't know. Don't need to know, no way to know, can't know, not possible to know. And get deep into that don't know mind and just allow yourself to be in the space of don't know, and know that it's totally okay, and know that everything that you need to know, you can know. It's easily accessible. If you need to know something and you know it's easily acceptable or accessible on the internet, by all means, go Google it. But if you're Googling things and you're just not finding the thing that you're looking for, or you're asking the people and they're not able to tell you, and you're asking God, Goddess, and they're not able to tell you, and you're asking yourself and you are able to tell yourself, whew, okay, you're in a don't know space, and that's okay, right? Everything is in divine order. You're exactly where you need to be. You're going to know what you need to know when you need to know it. And so that is a really big piece of the loving what is. Love being in the place of not knowing. Chances are, if you're an astrologer and you're watching this, you want to know everything, right? That's why we study what can happen in the future. But, you know, to be okay with not knowing, to have this openness and kind of welcoming the experience of, I will know what I need to know, and I'll know I needed to know it because I know it at this time, right? Like, even evaluating your attachments to knowing is in itself a way of dissolving ego, or a way of surrendering to spirit, right? To dissolve this attachment to the ego needing to know everything all the time. Okay. Another thing too, so like I mentioned before, you want to know, where is the moon phase? And also when the moon is being related to other planets in the chart, right? So let's take a look at this chart again. So inside is the natal chart, on the outside are the current transits. This is a future date, but I really liked this day and the way that it all lined up. So currently transiting moon at this time will be at 20 degrees Aries. Automatically, I'm like, okay, moon right on top of her north node. This is going to be a big deal kind of day for her. Of course, this happens once a month. I thought it was really cool that kind of coming at it from the opposite side of the spectrum, transiting North Node is also conjunct her natal moon. So whenever I see that sort of repeating signature kind of coming at it from both ends of the transiting and natal planets kind of on top of each other, I'm like, okay, this is a special day where it's, you know, not only is it a square to the nodes, so we're looking at some skipped steps in her natal chart, it's also like a skipped step in the current transits. So this is a very big day for emotional awareness. It's in Aries. It's like, what do I want? Who am I? What are my instincts telling me? And in the third house, this could be a lot about having finally found an answer to that. This person is on a quest, searching for herself, and that's a lifelong theme. But there are going to be certain times where answers are available, where information is going to come, where the opportunity to join the right class and be in the class with the right students and meet the perfect teacher and all of these things, all of the things are going to align. She's going to pick up the right book. She's going to watch the right movie. She's going to like turn her radio station on and like the perfect song's going to be playing, or maybe it's Spotify and Spotify just knows her so well and just gives her the right song at the right time, right? Like this is that kind of day where things align in a way that are going to propel her her emotional self-awareness forward very quickly. And so to just have an awareness that that's going to happen on that day, well, that's going to be a game changer. Maybe she wakes up a little bit earlier that day. Maybe she, you know, because Aries tends to want to go fast and do a lot, and you need to have space and freedom to be spontaneous and not have all the answers, right? Because Aries is that like no roadmap, you're just going and you have to let your instincts guide you. So kind of the more space you give yourself for that, the more you actually allow the creative process to emerge. So hopefully that makes sense. And of course, you want to also look at what is the phasal relationship between the transiting moon and her natal moon. And of course, then you can actually, if you want to go deep, you can go into the what's the relationship between the moon and all the planets. I don't know how many people have time for all of that every single day, but if you really, really, really love understanding yourself astrologically, that's totally something that you could do. I do it at the very least, with what is the natal planet. So, right, you're seeing this disseminating square, last quarter square would have been disseminating as of 14 degrees. But this last quarter square of the transiting moon to her natal moon. And so what is the last quarter square all about? It's that crisis in consciousness. It's like, whoa, really, who am I? Who am I though? And what am I here to do with the world? And I have to listen and tune into my instincts on the most primal level to be able to hear that and listen to that. And if I'm in a space of instead being confused and not sure and worrying about the fact that I might not know things, or thinking that there has to be one right answer, right? Coming from the South Node in the ninth house could be kind of dogmatic, thinking there's only one right way. Whereas opening up to the possibility of the third house, like, oh man, this is relativity of truth. This is all the things are possible. No, I just got to pick one thing that I want and just do it. And if it works, I'll keep doing it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to stop. I'm going to tune in with all the different parts of myself. Are they in agreement? Are they in alignment? Great. I'll steam ahead. Is there even like 20% of me that does not want to do this thing? Then don't do it. Oh, if you are in a space of confusion and decision making, this is a great mantra. You might want to try it out. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. This is really good practice for boundaries. I've really been learning this one with North Node and Cancer, Capricorn stuff. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Please let me know if you have questions about that. And as you can see, this can become very quick for you if it's not already, by just having these sort of strategies for yourself. And then who knows, maybe you want to look then at, the moon in different signs, or maybe you want to look at any of the other planets in relation to the transiting moon or her natal moon, right? Like there's a lot of different things you can look at, but if you know what you're trying to find, like you are aware that maybe you're working on emotional self-awareness, always look at the moon. Like if that's your main focus, don't need to complicate it by trying to look at all the things all the time, all at once. That can be a little bit overwhelming for many people. Just simplify it, like pick out the themes that you want to look at and then just look at those themes. Okay, so Where the sun is our current life purpose. The sun is our consciousness, our vital awareness, it's our divine soul blueprint, right? Natally, we all have that sun, our heart. Sun rules the heart, right? It's what pumps all of the energy and vitality through our body. Also, that correlation with Leo, what makes us special? What are we here to shine? What are we here to share about ourselves? What are we here to explore and discover and enjoy about life? What's that thing that makes us get up in the morning, that makes us stay up at night, that we just randomly want to explore when we probably are told that we need to be doing something else? I don't know, that was astrology for me. I was supposed to be writing other papers, and I was like, what is this thing mean? And those are the things, if you find yourself drawn to something, generally speaking, there's something there for you. We tend to magnetize to ourselves. What we seek is seeking us, right? As Rumi, poet, tells us. So that sun energy is really like seeking what we are here to do. So when the sun is transiting, like right now, the sun just ingressed Virgo, all of us get to take on this sort of like collective outfit of layering the Virgo clothing on top of whatever our natal clothing is. So say, this is me with my regular Sagittarius sun outfit. Okay, this is purple, perfect, because Virgos love purple often. Color of lavender and all the things, right? Okay, so now I just put this lavender Virgo sun on top of my Sagittarius outfit. So that's how you can look at the layering of these things. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden we are not who we were underneath, but now we're looking at like, how does this outer layer, this changing layer, how does it work with this layer? Maybe the colors are not good. Maybe the colors are kind of like, I don't really want to see those colors together. And then you kind of got to be creative with like, oh, maybe I'll just wrap it all like this. Maybe I'll just go full Virgo this season, or maybe I'll do something like this where it's kind of like draped around my shoulders, right? Like there's a lot of different ways that we can try on all of these energies. And when we are following that, when we are aligning with the seasons, like the Virgo season energies of self-improvement, of looking at our health and listening to our bodies, everything else we do is going to be easier. And it's almost like we get to do our sun through the Virgo sun. It's like we get to layer them. We get to try on this different mode of expression, and we get to receive this new type of awareness, which only improves our current state of awareness. So again, I'm not going to repeat all of these same things because I literally have exactly the same questions listed for all of the 12 houses, but it's the same thing. You kind of ask these questions through the lens of the function of the sun. What is being downloaded to me in terms of like divine soul blueprint? What do I need to be consciously aware of? What does my vitality need to be aware of in each season? And then looking at, how does it relate with your natal sun? How does it relate with your natal mode of your natural mode of expression? And so same thing here, right? So this person has, the sun transiting in her 8th house. It's going to light up a lot of really deep soul things. I mean, she's already doing this throughout Leo season, but this is even going to carry into her 9th house towards the end of Virgo season and into Libra season, right? Like it's always on this continuum. And so we're looking at, okay, she's kind of been doing the 8th house for a month. Mars is there too. Venus is just there. And so how is she perhaps improving her one-on-one relationships with people in the 8th house? How is she maybe discriminating between what is her and what is not her, right? Because in the 8th house, we tend to merge with who we are around or what is around us and what we are learning and taking in energetically. We get into this space of understanding our power a little bit more. It can be a very empowering time to have the transiting sun moving through our 8th house. And then looking at it in relationship to her natal sun, which is in Scorpio, she's probably pretty comfortable with the sun in her 8th house because she's already aware of what that energy of probing the mysteries feels like. But now it's just kind of offering this slightly different lens of adding the Virgo, kind of like, how can I improve this? How can I improve my understanding of this? How can I make it make sense? How can I break down the parts of my soul rather than just kind of just diving in and being in it? How can I take it apart and analyze it a little bit and make my relationship with my soul that much better? And then also, of course, going into that space of understanding that you are already always enough, right? We never want to go to that, the just overboard expression of Virgo that's like, you're not enough, right? We are always enough, and there's always room to grow. Both are true at the same time. Okay, so where is Mercury? Mercury is our thought awareness, right? When we're talking about transiting Mercury, it's like, what on earth are we thinking about? And where is the power of our minds going? And then how does it relate to our natal Mercury? This being kind of, what are the tensions in our thought? Or what is the alignments in our thought? Maybe we are kind of working through these mental problems or wanting to find certain answers to things, or trying to learn something, and then at a certain point in the seasons or in the cycle, something just clicks, right? It's like, maybe this is your natal Mercury, and then this is like transiting Mercury, kind of doing this dance around here, and it's like, over here, it didn't really make sense. You're having the same question, didn't make sense here. All of a sudden, Mercury's over here. Now you've got this whole new perspective, and now everything that you were learning before makes sense. Sometimes it's just patience and reminding ourselves that everything we need to know will be known. Of course, if we're tuning into Mercury retrogrades, that's definitely a time of not necessarily needing to seek outside of ourselves for too much new information. Maybe we're just very intentionally going over old information that we already had, information that we just needed to integrate in a higher way. And so really, again, going through these similar questions and then just framing them in terms of what your mind is doing, right? And so the mind really loves tasks, really loves to be able to make sense of things and to verbalize them. And so if you are able to see that Mercury is transiting in your first house, maybe making your intention for that month or 3 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on if it's retrograde, being in that house, to just journal every day about who am I and what are my instincts telling me. Or if it's in your 4th house, what are my emotional needs? You can write about your emotional needs, right? So it's like doing a task that is linked to our thought awareness, or maybe you choose to read a book every month that correlates in some way with where Mercury is transiting in your chart. And you're just going to notice how when you read something or take in information that is extremely linked and relevant to the house that Mercury is transiting, or also, of course, the things that he's lighting up in other areas of your chart, holy wow, things just make sense really quickly. It's almost like you didn't even need to try to learn the thing. So it makes more sense to just go with, where is Mercury? What do I need to learn about right now? What do I need to think about? What's something to like put on my mind consciously, right? We tend to let our minds kind of steer us, and we just kind of follow along. And then we sometimes end up in really great places when we're doing that. And then other times we're like, wow, I'm in this very interesting spiral of anxiety. And how did I get here? And I don't even know what I'm thinking about anymore. When you're in that place, that's the best place to kind of connect with what are the patterns of your thoughts, really making note of things that you repeat to yourself, whether it's even just like 2 or 3 times, right? If you've thought a thing at least 2 or 3 times, in my opinion, it's something that you should write down and challenge or question, especially if it's something that's bringing up stress or anxiety or causing you to just feel in resistance in some way to whatever it is that you're doing or living or thinking or how you're relating, right? What if this is conversations with other people, right? How on earth can you use the power of your mind, which is such a beautiful servant to the heart, to learn about maybe another person, and then how is it that they need to be communicated to right now? And that's going to make all the difference in that relationship, for example. So, you know, transiting Mercury, typically not very far away from the sun, either before or after. So this person, you know, with Mercury, when Mercury is in Libra, all of us are really in this space of needing to balance but left and right hemispheres of the brain. Also thinking about just the general balance of our lives, and if it is applicable, the balance of our bodies. Libra rules acid alkaline balance. And when we are off, typically we're more acidic in this culture, our brain is super foggy. Like, we don't think clearly when our bodies and our hormones and our acid alkaline balance is off. We've got mental fog. So that can be something to kind of watch out for, and to just kind of use your mind to observe the balances in your body. And you can also think about writing. Writing is something that benefits left and right brain, because it's that left brain gets to be logical and kind of think and plan what you're going to say. And then the right brain is kind of just doing something, and you're just doing it freely. There's not over analysis about what you're writing. You just do automatic writing, for example. And it's going to balance both sides of the brain, which is going to make all of the decisions that much simpler to make. And so this is actually a really good time to kind of zoom out from just the astrology for a moment and take a look at some mental strategies, because this is probably one of the number one things that I think most people that I connect with find useful, because we tend to filter everything through our minds first. Even if we're going to be doing something solely based on emotions, a lot of us are just not as good at that. So to start with the mind is a lot easier when it's like applying it as homework or as a task. So if you're not familiar with The Work by Byron Katie, I highly recommend it. She has a lot of really good books, and she has a really honest and authentic path and approach as a spiritual teacher. And so The Work is basically asking yourself a series of questions that question your thoughts. So this is directly pertinent to looking at Mercury transits, or anytime Mercury is heavily transited in your chart. I kind of lump question 1 and 2 together, because question 1 is it true? So say you're having a thought about people at work do not appreciate me. You may say that is the thought. Question 1, is it true? Well, I think it's true because this person has said this, or this person doesn't say this, or that's the look that they gave me, or they were not honoring my time, or they make fun, so there's like usually a string of like justifications for how that thought is true at first, right? When you're doing this work. Question 2, though, is can you absolutely know that it's true? Can you really? Like, can you 100% without a doubt, you put your life on the line to back up that thought that people at work don't like you, or people at work aren't appreciating you, or something? And then you just kind of get to a place where, usually you can't. And I think that since you kind of know that, even though you know that that's the general, like, you're going to get to that point in the questioning, I still think it's a good idea to ask yourself these questions, because then you just get in the habit of questioning your thoughts instead of just immediately believing them, because most of our suffering in this world is based on believing our thoughts. So then question 3, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? So when you believe the thought that people don't appreciate you at work, how do you act? Maybe you close yourself in. Maybe you create a wall around yourself. Maybe you don't talk to people. Maybe you actually don't do your best work because you feel like it's not going to be appreciated anyways. That's pretty life-changing, right? To observe that you believing a thought about other people, how they think about you, is totally changing how you would act. That's huge. And then question 4, who would you be without that thought? Who would you be without the thought that people at work don't appreciate you? Well, probably be a little bit more open to people, a little bit more free, a little bit more maybe self-appreciating. There's a lot of potential for who you might be without that thought. And in any case, you're probably less burdened by believing the thought that is likely not true anyways, or there's some other story, you know, like we have all these ideas about like, yes, maybe somebody is behaving a certain way toward us, but without questioning our thoughts, we might actually believe that it's because of us, instead of then going into the space of maybe they're just having a rough day. Maybe they're also going through this crazy conscious evolution journey and don't have the words to talk about that with you. We haven't exactly created a social structure where everybody is comfortable talking about their evolution. We kind of tend to keep it very hidden in true Plutonic Scorpion fashion, right? We don't really talk about our emotion and our transformation and our change all that often because it brings us shame and guilt. And of course, we're also collectively working on that too with South Node, Pluto, and Saturn and Capricorn. So even just knowing that, it can give us this kind of space and understanding about other people, and then help us to not believe negative thoughts about ourselves, or as I like to call it, the itty bitty shitty committee. We won't listen to it as often because we will question everything that they say. And so after you go through these 4 questions, you then turn the thought around and ask if the opposite is as true or truer than the original thought, assumption, judgment, story, etc. So instead of everybody at work or nobody at work appreciates me, you turn it around to everybody at work appreciates me. And look at what a difference that can make. And this is, of course, the example that I gave can be very, you know, that's a simple example. Not every example of the thoughts that we have are as simple, especially because we're also very attached to our stories and our identities around our stories. And so, you know, with Mercury transits, I think in order to align with them, in order to align with our Mercury transits, it really requires us to question our thoughts so that we are not just believing all of our thoughts, but at the same time honoring them and acknowledging them and sensing into the fact that they do have immense value. So doing the things like writing and questioning our thoughts, it doesn't mean that we're saying goodbye ego or goodbye mind. It's just saying, hey, I'd like to be in a more mature relationship with you, where you don't just tell me everything and I just immediately believe it, right? We can release ourselves from a codependent relationship with our mind, right? We can have a relationship with ourselves, with our mind. So hopefully that's helpful and not confusing. So a question that I often get asked is, you know, how do you align with uncomfortable transits? And so hopefully I was able to offer some strategy for that, especially around Sun, Moon, and Mercury. And I'm definitely going to be diving in deeper to the different archetypes. I think the next one will be Mars, Venus, so patterns of relating and those kinds of things. And then I'll do Jupiter, Saturn, nodal axis, and then I'll do the outer planets together, and then I'll probably also do goddess asteroids. So stay tuned for the series. But really, so how to align with them is first and foremost, understand the function of this planet. You know, the planet involved in question wants to help with some aspect of your conscious evolution journey. How to get out of the cycle of resistance? Well, another good strategy, you know, questioning your thoughts about that archetype, you know. Say, you know, I'm a Sun in Sagittarius and I know that, oh, Gemini season is going to pull up all the oppositions or something, you know. Instead of kind of attaching myself to that story about that season, I can instead enter kind of like this opposite space of curiosity about it. I would say curiosity, wonder, presence, questioning, and doing our best to enter into a continuously self-loving, loving what is space is really the best way to get out of these cycles of resistance. And of course, this is not something that just happens overnight, but you can see immediate results and relief by employing even any one of those. Something I also highly suggest and recommend for all people is just getting acquainted with the different aspects of ourselves and doing parts work and things like that. So this is something that I do one-on-one with clients. And so if you're curious about diving into that, I'm definitely here at your service. If you have any questions about any of this or anything that you want to share, please leave a question in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Please feel free to reach out and I will be sure to honor your request in any way that I can. So thank you so much for being here with me. I hope that this is something that's valuable to you. And I appreciate you and honor you on your conscious evolutionary journey.